Okay, we're on Chapter 10, Lesson 4. This is page 651 in your book. We are doing modeling of decimals and fractions with our different ways to represent those. You can write a decimal as a fraction. Both a decimal and a fraction show part of a whole. So if I were to write 4/10 as a fraction with a denominator of 10, I'm going to write 0 because I have no whole ones, and I have 4/10. So 4 would go in the 10th place. I could write a 0 here, but it's unnecessary, so I don't need to write that part, which is 0.4 means 4/10. Now the second way to show 4/10 is to model it on my parts of whole. So I would shade 4/10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4/10. 4 of the 10 equal parts. I'm going to shade, because we're talking about tenths, I'm going to shade whole columns, and I'm going to shade 4 of them. So that's how that would look filling in the grid. And if I were going to write it as a fraction, I would write 4/10. So 0.4 is 4/10 and 4/10. The number line shows that 0.4 is 4 out of 10 or 4/10. So this point on the number line is what we're looking at. 4 parts out of 10 equal parts. So these are all the different ways to represent one fraction. So on the next page it has a number line, and in this number line it goes all the way to the hundredths place. So we have 0 and we have 1 whole, and they have it divided not into tenths but into hundredths. So we're writing 45 hundredths as a fraction with a denominator of 100 and using the number line. So they've got it 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, which is the same as 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths, 30 hundredths, 40 hundredths, and 45 hundredths is going to be between 40 hundredths and 50 hundredths, which is what they're showing right here, 0.45 or 45 hundredths. And that's the location where the dot is, where they would be written. So 0.45 can be written as 45 hundredths. And we say them in word form the exact same way, 45 hundredths and 45 hundredths. They're written in different ways, but they're spoken the same way. Now we're looking at shade the models to show how 7/10 and 70 hundredths are equivalent. So let me get my line tool. Okay, so I'm shading 7 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And likewise, if I'm looking at my hundreds chart, I know that each row is equivalent to 10 squares or 10 cubed squares. So I'm going to color or shade 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and you'll notice that here there are 3 columns that are unshaded and 3 columns that are unshaded here, and the pictures represent the same amount, so we can say that 7/10 is equivalent to 70 hundredths. Now here it's asking me to write 2 fractions that represent the models. So we had 0.7, and I'm going to write 7. 7/10 is one way, and I could also write 70 hundredths. And these are the fractions that are shown by what you can see up here. Okay, now I'm looking at number 3. It says explain how you could write 9/10 as a fraction with a denominator of 100 without using models. So go back and look at 1 and 2 and see how we did that, and you're going to write word form to explain exactly what we did in the last 2 problems. Okay, it's number 4, explain how you could write 78/100 as a fraction with a denominator of 100 without using models. So similar to this one, except for it's already going out to the 100th place value in our decimal. So what would that fraction with a denominator of 100 look like? So on the practice, on the top, all you have to do is fill in a bar for each tenth that is represented by the number here, and then on the line you're going to write the fraction that stands for. So that is something that we modeled in the example, so I'm not going to show those. Down here is the same thing, except for instead of only having the columns, you have the full 100 grid, and some of them you're going to have whole bars and then some individual squares that are shaded in order to complete this one. And I think I'll do number 12 just so that you see exactly what it's going to look like. So number 12, I would have 7 rows and that would represent the 7/10 that you see here. And then in order to show the 100th, I'm just going to shade in one box. And that would look like 71/100. So that's what you're doing on these problems here. Okay, so on page 654, the word problems and apply it, it has us solving some different questions involving decimals and writing them as a fraction. So number 17, there are 10 cars on the racetrack. If 3/10 of the cars are red, what fraction of the cars are not red? So now we have to color in the bars to match this and then count the ones that are not colored. So that's going to be how we solve this, and then I want to do a text box to get you started with your sentence on this one. Okay, because remember we've got to write complete sentence answers here. There are 10 cars on the racetrack. What fraction of the cars are not red? So that's how that sentence should be written. Okay. On Monday it snowed 6/10 of an inch. Write 6/10 as a fraction with a denominator of 10. So we're still going to write our, it doesn't like it when I do that, text box. Oh, now I've got like 6 text boxes. Put one there. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, so I'm going to write on Monday it snowed. And that's how we would write that sentence with the fraction. Okay, there are 100 students in the gymnastics competition. 57/100 or 0.57 of the students are 9 years old. Write 57/100 as a fraction with a denominator of 100. So and I could make it in the competition if I had more room to write that. So that's how those should be looking in their sentence answers that I expect for you to write. Okay. Okay, number 20, the fourth grade class is donating 100 clothing items to charity. 63 hundredths of the items are sweaters and 20 hundredths of the items are jeans. What part of the clothing items are neither sweaters nor jeans? Okay, so in order to solve this one, you're going to need to do an operation and then determine what is left over to get to the 100 items. And that is going to be the fraction you're going to write with the denominator of 100. So use your workspace, do your operation to figure out how much the sweaters and the jeans are. What operation is that when I said and the jeans? And then figure out how much left. What operation is that? How much left to get to 100? Explain to a classmate why 8/10ths and 80 hundredths are the same number. I'm going to refer you back to the examples that we did earlier on. And then the first example has how I can use models to relate fractions and decimals. You're just going to explain in word form what we've been doing with the numbers throughout this lesson. That's what it's asking for on number 22. And basically what it's asking for there is that fractions and decimals are both parts of a whole, so they can be both written to represent any number that is a part of a whole. That's how you solve number 22. And if you still have time in your minutes that you have reserved for math, you should be doing the homework, and we will check this tomorrow during our meeting. Thank you very much.